On the show this week, the Honda Amaze in its all-new diesel auto guise goes up against the Maruti Dzire and the VW Ameo. And we take a very special drive in some very tough SUVs to celebrate 70 years of Land Rover. Compact sedans have really come quite a long way in the last 10 years, haven't they? They started out as a means for car makers to take advantage of a tax break on cars less than 4 meters in length, but they've grown and blossomed into something you really love to put on your driveway. And I don't mean that just in terms of size and space and the way they look. I also mean in terms of features and convenience. And it doesn't get much more convenient for a compact sedan than an automatic gearbox. And mate that automatic gearbox to the frugality of a diesel engine, and well, it's a match made in heaven. Or is it? That's exactly what we're here to find out, and to do that we've brought 3 different kinds of diesel automatic compact sedans. The brand new Honda Amaze with a CVT gearbox, the Dzire with an AMT gearbox, and the Ameo with a dual clutch DSG gearbox. We'll pick apart the pros and cons of each and hopefully be able to pick a winner at the end. All these cars are available in the highest spec you can get for a diesel automatic. And while for the Dzire that means the fully loaded ZDI Plus and the Ameo the feature-packed Highline Plus, for the Amaze you only get it in the V trim, not VX. That means you miss out on a lot of features from the VX, like a touchscreen and a rear view camera, and overall it has the weakest equipment list in this test. The Dzire meanwhile gets highlights like automatic LED headlamps, while the Ameo scores for its auto wipers, cruise control and the auto dimming inside mirror. The new Amaze's dual-tone dashboard is well styled and material quality is hugely improved too, with a nice textured finish on many of the surfaces and buttons. The new front seats offer excellent shoulder support and get adjustable headrests, something that the old Amaze didn't have. You like the Desire's large but soft front seats too, but what stands out more is the sense of space. It just doesn't feel like a compact sedan. What helps this is the beige upholstery, but unfortunately it also attracts dirt easily. We're also not fans of the tacky faux wood. That said, the dash looks neat, the dials look classy, and the flat bottom steering wheel is a sporty touch. The Ameo also gets a flat bottom steering, but it's the very German quality of the interior that will win you over. There's a solid thunk on door shut and the switchgear feels chunky. For all its quality, however, there's no getting around the fact that this is not a roomy cabin. And on the topic of space, let's check out what each of these cars offers in the back seat. Now, like the previous Honda Amaze, the back seat of this one is really rather impressive in terms of space. Jay, who is driving, is over 6 feet tall, and I've left the seat in his driving position, and yet as you can see there's plenty of knee room, loads of headroom, and I've got pretty good support as well. It's even got a nice armrest with cup holders, and I get a good view out of the side as well. 2 bugbears, however, are that there are no rear AC vents and that the rear headrests are not adjustable, which is something you get in both the other cars. The Maruti Dzire too has a very spacious back seat. I think it might actually just edge the Amaze a little bit. It certainly does feel wider than the Amaze. Knee room is equally good if not better, and headroom does actually feel a little bit better. The armrest is placed nice and high, which is a good thing, and like I mentioned before, it does get a rear AC vent and adjustable rear headrest. The only thing that maybe draws it back is that the thigh support isn't quite as good as the Amaze, but overall I would say this is the best back seat of this trio. Now, if there is one obvious area that the Volkswagen Ameo falls short, it is the back seat. I've got the driver's seat, as with the other cars, set to Jay Partel's driving position, and as you can see my knees are brushing up against it. Headroom again is okay, but taller passengers might find it an issue. The seat itself is not that uncomfortable, but then again it's just the space that creates an issue here. There is no rear armrest either, but it does at least get you an air conditioning vent and an adjustable rear headrest. And when it comes to boot space, the Amaze scores best with a class-leading 420 litres. And though the Dzire and Ameo lag behind with 378 and 330 litres respectively, their boots are at least well-shaped, so they're more usable than you might think. And now, let's get this show on the road. Yes, Honda has finally gone down the diesel automatic route with the Amaze, and it uses the same 1.5-litre engine as before. However, with the CVT it has been detuned and now it makes 80 horsepower and 160 Newton meters, and that's quite a significant drop. Do you feel the deficit out on the road? In all honesty, no you don't. This engine feels plenty powerful enough at low to medium speeds. It's only out on the highway when you're trying to make an overtaking maneuver at high speed that you're likely to feel a power deficit. However, one eternal bugbear of this engine has returned unchanged, and that's the noise. It is still a very, very clattery motor. What is a wonderful surprise is this gearbox. This CVT is really smooth and gives you power on tap as soon as you put your foot down. Yes, if you really ask too much of it, you will get a bit of that rubber band effect, but it's surprisingly well contained. Now I have to say that AMT technology has come a long way since its infancy, and this Maruti Dzire AMT is one of the best examples of it yet. For one, it's a lot more responsive when you tap the accelerator with very little delay in power delivery. Secondly, it also has a creep function, so even if you set out without pressing the accelerator, it's a lot smoother this time around. However, it's still an AMT at the end of the day, and that does mean it has some inherent flaws. It works smoothly at low revs and to light taps of the accelerator. However, when it's time to change gear, you do get this frustrating void in the power delivery, and it gives you a lot of that head nod. And this only gets worse when you're going faster. So yes, while this gearbox has gotten better as an AMT, as a gearbox overall, it still falls short of the other two. When it comes to the powertrain, the Volkswagen Ameo certainly does seem to have the edge, on paper at least. It's got 110 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque, and all that is mated to a high-speed DSG double clutch gearbox. And yes, when you're going for it, there is really nothing quite like this engine and gearbox combination. The power reserve is really, really strong, and upshifts are almost seamless. You can barely tell they're happening. But things are not all perfect either. For instance, it can be a little slow to respond when you kick down for an overtake, like so. And at lower speeds, downshifts can be a little bit jerky, so you do get a bit of head nod when that happens. And like the Amaze, this is not a very quiet motor at all. You hear it a lot at idle, and once you open it up a bit, there is a very loud clatter. And we put this to the test with our equipment. The Ameo was the noisiest at idle, while the Amaze proved to be a bit louder on the move. The Dzire was the quietest in all parameters. And of course, the other thing we tested was performance. The Amaze, with its quick responses off the line, got to 100 kph the soonest in 11.75 seconds. And the Ameo is not far behind at 11.98 seconds, a gap that it soon closes as you get past 120. The Dzire meanwhile clears the turn in 13.99 seconds. In kickdown acceleration, the Dzire is once again the slowest, but the Amaze and Ameo are very closely matched. So, though the Amaze seems severely down on power and torque, in the real world it's actually the quickest. So that is how each of these engines sound, feel and performs with their very varied gearboxes. But it's also important to know how these cars ride and handle. And let's start with the Amaze. The way they've set up the suspension, it does a fantastic job of soaking up bumps. It's quite absorbent, but at the same time it's very compliant, so you don't get floated or bounced around too much. And it rides quite flat as well. The steering, yes, it's got a little bit of slack built into it, but it's actually better than most in this segment. Now in the Dzire as well, ride quality is rather good. In fact, all three of these cars ride really well. It is perhaps slightly stiffer sprung than the other two, so at lower speeds it does filter bumps into the cabin a little bit. But overall, in isolation, you wouldn't call it bad. However, one thing that this car must get severely marked down for is the steering. It's so light and so lifeless, it will actually steer itself if you leave it to its own devices. And I don't mean that in a good way. This car too is rather impressive in the ride quality department. In fact, it's right up there with the Honda Amaze. The Ameo feels solid and planted like a proper German car. The steering too is really rather impressive. It's got a good weight to it, gives you a lot of confidence, and it's only at very low speeds that it feels perhaps a bit too loose and light. And with pretty good body control, you wouldn't mind taking a set of corners in the Ameo. So, as you might have noticed, none of these cars stands head and shoulders above the others, and each has a set of strengths that might suit you, and of course, weaknesses that might not. The Dzire has the roomiest cabin and expansive feature set, and also the promise of the best fuel economy. That's all well and good, but in a comparison centered around the automatic transmission, what spoils it for the Dzire is its gearbox. The AMT feels just too basic compared to the Amaze's CVT and the Ameo's DSG. Frequent highway users will find a great companion in the Ameo TDI DSG, with its punchy engine, quick shifting gearbox and great high-speed manners. The strong build and impressive quality are also strong points. But this is a sedan, not a hatchback, and therefore the back seat and boot hold some weightage, and that, unfortunately, is where the VW loses out. In our book, it's the Honda Amaze that comes the closest to being an all-rounder. Its engine and gearbox work well together to give a seamless driving experience. It has a spacious cabin and scores well on overall comfort. Sure, the engine is noisy, but then neither of its rivals is much better, and we wish it was offered in the fully loaded VX spec, which would give it some vital features. Then again, factor in the price and you'll agree it's not too bad. Honda's foray into diesel automatic cars sure has gotten off to the right start.